In this lab, we're going to look at the Snapper tool and using it to roll back changes made on a SUSE Linux machine. To begin with, we're going to use the Snapper tool as root in a shell. We're going to do a Snapper list in order to show the currently available snapshots that are available. If we wanted to, we could go back to a version of whatever snapshot we wanted, whatever specific to a file or to an entire system state. This is one way to look at the list of snapshots. There are a couple of other ones that we can look at. If you do a mount and grep for snapshot, you'll also see that there are a couple of subvolumes that are related to snapshots. In this case, we have a snapshot that is being used as our read-write volume. So we're making changes based on this one. And if we wanted to, again, we could use this as kind of our baseline. In fact, we're going to do that. There's another location that we can look as well. If you do an ls at the root of the volume, if you take a look, you can see directories. Now you'll note that these correspond with the snapshots that are being used or that are listed in our Snapper list above. Okay, so we've got multiple tools for looking at or seeing snapshots. Let's create a snapshot, then make some changes and see how snapshots can be used to roll back a file that we want the original version on. So let's start with the Snapper create command, -C. We're going to give it a type of timeline, and we're going to call it snapshot. Okay, like that, my snapshot. So we create the snapshot, and if we do a Snapper list, you can see that 30 is now the snapshot, and the description is listed as my snapshot. Okay, so we know which one that is. Now let's make a change, a simple change. We're going to edit the etc hosts file, and down at the bottom we're going to add just an entry, 17.2.25, and we'll call it server 5. Okay, so we've added, we actually added two lines, right? The space there, the empty line, and then this entry here. We'll go ahead and save that. And now we're going to go into YAST. There's more than one way to do this. We're going to look at a couple of different ways to do this. We're going to go into YAST and look at the Snapper module. And this is going to list or show our available ones. It shows the one that we did from the command line that we took. That's my snapshot here. But you'll notice we also have another one created. This was generated because we opened a module in YAST. It takes a snapshot so that any changes can be rolled back if we make those changes. Okay, so that's happened. That's good. So we're inside of it. Let's actually take a look inside of this my snapshot. Let's look at changes. What it's going to do is going to say my current system compared to what things looked like when that snapshot was made. And the only change to the system that was made was the change that we made. And if we highlight it and show that, you can see that in red we have a change to the timestamp, the modified date. Okay, that's different. So we have the original in red. The blue shows what was added. The plus signs out to the side show us changes. And then we have the empty line and the reference to server 5. Okay, what we expect to see. All right, let's do the Snapper list again over here. And if we do something like Snapper diff to do this same comparison in a command line or from a command line, Snapper diff, and then the number of the snapshot and the one that's flagged as current. In this case, it's 0. So the my snapshot that we want to look at is 30, and then we put two dots and the one we want to compare it to, the original or the current in this case, and it will pop up and do the comparison. It basically shows us identical changes, right? We can see that. So we can look at it from the command line. We can go into the Snapper tool and look at it as well, should we choose to. All right, so now we're going to roll back the changes on that particular file and see what happens. Now that we have compared and we see that changes have been made, let's roll back some changes on that. Let's go back over to YAST And we're going to, with the host file selected, we're going to click Restore. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to use this version instead of the current version? We're going to say yes. It's going to say, okay, we did that for you. And now we're going to come back over here and we're going to do a cat of that etc hosts. And what we should see is the reference to server 5 is no longer there. I mean, if we scroll up, we can see, in fact, we don't even have to scroll. You can see server 5 was listed. It's now gone. That's what we would expect it to do. Now, when we do a snapper list again, and we take a look at what's happened, if I come back here, I'm done. I've finished what I wanted to do. If I close out of here and do a snapper list on this again, you'll notice that what's happened is I have a pre and post pair, these two bottom entries. Now what's happened? The pre one, as I pointed out before, was created when I went into the YAST Snapper module. Anytime you go into a module in YAST, it creates a snapshot, just in case any changes are made, so that you can roll back if you find that any changes that were made were bad or inappropriate or need to go away. After the changes are made, there's another snapshot that's made so that you can go back to the last version just after those changes were made as things roll forward, and over time that might be useful to you. And we can do a comparison between those two. In this case, the numbers are 31 and 32. Okay, so we can do the snapper diff again, and we can do 31.32 and compare them. And sure enough, it shows that the changes of the etc host file where server 5 was referenced indeed are there in 31, but are not there in 32 after our changes were made where we rolled it back. Now, there's more information that we can get about individual snapshots. So if we do, let me clear the screen here. If we do a less on .snapshots and we say, let's see, 32 was the post, and we look at the info.xml file, it shows you information about it. It shows you when it was taken, etc. Instead of looking at info, if we look at the file list 31, the companion snapshot, the pre-snapshot, this being the post-snapshot, it says, oh yeah, etc hosts file was the one that was changed. Okay, so we can do it from the tool if we want, inside of YAST using the module if you want, but you can also get all this information just by browsing out and looking at the appropriate location in the file system. Okay, so we're going to make a change to the NTP configuration just to capture changes in our snapshot. So NTP, we'll look at the NTP configuration inside of YAST. We're going to go ahead and say now and on boot, and we're going to add a server. We will add something like, let's use a default value. Let's do 0.pool.ntp.org. Okay. And we can just hit OK. We don't care if it actually works. It's just something for us to put in there and capture. So we're going to save that. And now we're going to come back and we're going to do a, we can do this inside of Snapper too. Let's just do that. Snapper. There's Snapper. And you'll notice again, look at this. We have yet again a pre and post pair that are showing up, 33 and 34 for the NTP changes. Again, before we made our change is 33, after we made our change 34. All right. So if we want to, we could highlight these, we could do a show changes, and we could look in here. Now, what exactly was changed? Well, the entries for the reference to the NTP server we're going to synchronize with has been added to cronny.conf, as well as systemd, we've added the cronyd.service where we told it now and on boot, go ahead and start this service. So that had to be added as well. So let's do this from the command line. Let's just do a snapper list like this, and you can see Sure enough, 33 and 34, and of course 35 because we went into the YAST module for Snapper as well. That showed up just in case we make changes and keep them. All right, let's make some more changes and do some more snapshots and just kind of see how this works get a little bit better understanding of it. Let's do an RM of etc scale, and let's get rid of something like the mud.rc file. This is a default file there. Okay, so we've deleted that. Now, if we do a snapshot of the, let's say 34 was the post. Actually, let's go 35. Oh, whoops. We want to do that. Let's do status instead of 35.0, 0 being current. Snapper status 35.0. Okay, like that. We can see the thing that's changed is mut.rc. Okay. So we can also do from, and we didn't roll this back from the command line. We could do that. We could do a snapper undo change, and then we do 35.current. Oh, whoops, not current. Current is 0, sorry. And then we do what file we want back. In this case, it's etsyscale.mut.rc. Okay, there you go. It created or added the file back. Now we can do a snapper list, and we need to look at our original snapshot. So my snapshot was the one that we created originally. And let's go ahead and just delete that. So how would we do that? Snapper, delete, and then the number. In this case, it's 30. And snapper list, and there you go. My snapshot is gone. And that's just fine. So that's working with snapshots and using the snapper tools, both from the shell, but also from inside of the snapper module for YAST. Now we're going to create a second ButterFS file system to test Snapper with. To do so, we're going to fire up YAST, and we're going to go into the partitioning tool. It's called Partitioner. And yes, we know what we're doing, or we pretend to. And we're going to go in and make a change. We're going to highlight VDB, and we're going to add a new file system. So we're going to click Add. We're going to let it be the maximum size. So we'll hit Next, and it'll be data and ISV. And we're going to format it as ButterFS. And the mount options, we're going to call it Data1. And then we'll just go ahead and click Finish. That should go ahead and create that for us, or prepare us for that. Then we'll click Next and Finish. And we've now created our partition to work with. Now, in order for us to interact with this new partition that we've created, we need, from a Snapper standpoint, we need to have a configuration file for it. Now, this is a simple thing to do. We type Snapper -C data1, and then we do create config is the command, and then the location or the mount point where this is going to apply is data1. Okay. Now, if we take a look at the etc snapper configs data1, you'll see that it has indeed created one for it. Okay. So that's one way, is we can go in that etc directory. Or we can go and do a snapper list-configs like this, and this will show us the configuration files that are currently available to us. Now, we're going to create a snapshot. This is the first one created for data1. We're going to do a snapper -C data1 create -C timeline and data1 snapshot. Okay, all right. So there we go. We've created that. Now if we do a snapper -C data1 list. Now, why didn't I just type snapper list? Okay, well, since this is not part of the root snapshot pieces, if we do a snapper list, it's only going to show us the snapshots on the root volume. Since this is a new volume we've created, it has its own configuration file. We have to tell it if we want something other than the default, which is the root volume. Okay, so we've created a new volume, we've created a config file, and we've even created a snapshot for this new volume so that we can see what that looks like. So let's interact with it a little bit. As you can see, let's do a Snapper-C data 1 list. Okay, so we've got our snapshots there. Now, where does that actually store? Where are we seeing these actual files? Well, when we were looking at the snapshots or the root volume, it was right off the root volume in a .snapshots folder. If we do an ls on the, let's do AL just to make it easier, and data 1 on the data 1 volume, sure enough, there is a .snapshots directory there. If we wanted to, we could interact with our snapshots by going into that folder. In this case, we're just going to delete our partition configuration for that particular snapshot. We can do it by just deleting the files, or there's a tool for it. It's under Snapper for data 1 and delete config. Okay? And now if we do an up arrow and we list that, you'll notice the snapshots are gone from that directory. And if we wanted to, we could go in through the Snapper tool and take a look at configurations as well. So there you have it, us working with snapshots, creating another directory, a new volume, creating a new config for it, writing our own snapshots, reading what snapshots are in that volume, and so forth under SUSE Linux Enterprise.